checkered flag is out in Indianapolis, and the pubs are open in the UK. Dan Weldon has just won the Indianapolis 500.
This has been a dream come true for me. I want to hear the fans some more. I can't hear you. Got to scream. He hit the wall, just like Thomas Schechter. Keeps their foot on the gas. Dan Weldon is going to win the race.
Yeah, Dan!
That is unbelievable. Oh my goodness.
Weldon, after finishing second the last 2 years, wins when J.R. Hildebrand hits the wall coming out of four. I want to say hi to my family back home and my mother, and you know, the Alzheimer's Association for giving me the opportunity to represent them. It's just an incredible day.
3 years ago, we lost arguably one of the greatest drivers to take on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway after Dan Weldon was killed in a horrific incident at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Today's broadcast is dedicated in his memory. Dan, you'll never be forgotten. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to coverage of the second round of the 2014 STC Black Cup Team Championship from Road Atlanta. After a 90-minute endurance race last week, we have ourselves a 45-minute sprint showdown here at Road Atlanta. A couple of different things about this race as well. Rather than the rolling start, we will have ourselves a standing start for this and all 45-minute event. Will Vincent here along with Rachel Whiteford on RaceSpotTV. Qualifying is underway at the moment. And Rachel, as we get the times up on the left-hand side of your screen, Abby Copa-Lopez literally just going to the top of the time standings. Rushworth in second, Trudovich in third, Sanchez fourth, and Fernandez rounds out your top five, but it's ever changing. So then you see the cars just working themselves on the racetrack as we speak. And we're currently going to check in on this guy who's currently sat in the 18th position. Amando Palumbo just worked himself on a lap. You've got Mark Warmington on a lap as well. There he is. Let's ride along board of him, Rachel, coming down in towards turn number one.
Yeah, this is a really tricky part of the circuit, Will. It's a really tough section for the cars. Of course, you're coming up that hill and then you're heading into the later complex with the blind apex over crest. That is one of the hardest corners on this track.
As you can see, Warmington just working himself actually down the back straight away down towards the end of the lap. He's actually aborted that lap. It's Pablo Lopez. He's just gone to the top of the timing screens, as you can see him just about there, working himself down this very long back straightaway. And that final chicane, Rachel, is so difficult. That entire sequence of corners, the chicane, and then that very tough final corner, really is difficult in these GT cars.
That's true. It's a very high-speed corner, the final corner, so you obviously, the car's getting thrown out onto its furthest point of balance, and getting those cars turned at that speed is very difficult, Will. On
board then with Lopez as he completes another lap here at Road Atlanta through that final corner. That little right-hand kink is a lot more difficult than you think. 1:18.541 for him the last time by, and this is a slower lap, but he's going to work himself onto a flyer, clipping that curb down in turn number 1. You don't want to do that. Another Lopez, Abby Copa Lopez, also circulating on the racetrack and is working himself on there right now. Now these drivers has 4 laps to go as fast as they possibly can as we ride along board with Copa Lopez as he works himself down the back straightaway. Now it does look as though we've got a very close field because you've got Lopez and Gonzalez 1, 2 and 3. The Movano Racing Team car there of Gonzalez looking mighty quick, but he is 62 1,000ths of a second behind right now, Rachel.
Yeah, and this is a really tricky track, Will. It's complex because it's combining lots of high-speed, short straights and tight, twisty, slow-speed corners. So drivers have really got to have their technique hooked together for this lap.
So there you see Gonzalez just working himself out 6th, and that short run down to that double apex right-hander. Now this is a lot more difficult. All of these corners are actually a lot more difficult than you give them credit for. And you make that good point as well there, Rachel. There's so many different sections of this racetrack. You've got that fast back straightaway. You've got the sweeping turns of turns 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you've also got big braking zones, like the one into the final section of the racetrack, the chicane, and so many gradient changes as well.
That's definitely true. I mean, if you think as well, these GT cars are actually quite big, and Road Atlanta's not exactly the widest track, so getting that line right and not missing a corner is actually more difficult than you think. Passing here could definitely be at a premium today, Will.
Yeah, and of course we had quite a bit of passing at Road America last week, but here today at Road Atlanta it can well be a slightly different story. As Gonzalez finishes the lap, he's in 3rd place, and there's Copa Lopez off the racetrack as well. You've got Valesco just working himself somewhere on the racetrack. Not quite sure where he wants to go though, Rachel.
No, well, it's one of those tracks where if you aren't as familiar with it as some other people, some of these corners can really jump out and get you. As I mentioned earlier, turn 3, I believe it is, the crest of the hill. You've got to know where that corner is. You've got to know the line through it because you're aiming in the car before you can even see the corner. So, very technical, challenging track.
We've got the number 31 car. Nico is currently working himself on the racetrack. Most people have done their qualifications lap now, and of course, being such a short track, it means that we get things in the book really quickly. It's still Lopez from Gonzalez. They've each done 3 laps. Their qualifying is complete. You've got Juan Jose Sanchez, though, scored on the racetrack. We'll very quickly check in with him because he's looking as though slowing that car down, trying to get himself onto one flying lap, or is that going to be it? I think there's a little bit of cruise control going on there, Rachel.
Yeah, could be a little bit of, maybe not so happy with his lap. Maybe he's just trying to get another feel for it, find a little bit of something extra for the race. Because, you know, some people may not, once they've got the bank lap in, they know they're pretty good, then they know they can actually just go and have a little explore, see what they can find. It's every extra lap counts.
As you can see, I think with Sanchez, he was just going to try and work himself onto another lap, decides not to do it. As there you can see, Nikas in the number 31 car, working himself down through turn number 1, once again, just coming over the crest. And those S's will really be difficult. And of course, with such a short lap as well, Rachel, we didn't see much of it last week at Road America as far as traffic was concerned. We are probably a lot more likely to see some here today, and traffic, especially in Sector 1, can be a huge issue for drivers.
Very true, very true. Especially having watched a race here recently, which was Porsche C-Specs, I believe. Quite a similar car to the track, obviously not the same, but similar sort of speeds. And there was a lot of traffic, a lot of lapped cars going under, and work leaders having to work their way past that traffic. Very, very tough, Will.
Now, one thing that I'm a little bit surprised about is how drivers... Abby Copa Lopez actually just did one, but how these drivers aren't practicing their starts the same way that we see in the World Championship Series, because, again, standing start here, Rachel, you want to make sure that you've got the revs to get off the line, and the 3 different cars that we have here today, it will be interesting to see how they each react to that first run. McLaren I think is going to be the one with the biggest disadvantage on the start. The BMW, literally, you can just slam that clutch pedal down, chuck it into gear and go. Doesn't apply to the McLaren as much.
Absolutely true. The BMW definitely has an advantage in starts. Obviously, front engine, which is different to both the others, of course, McLaren being mid-engined and the Porsche being rear-engined. It has a different weight balance on the car, so the BMW has more weight over the front, which keeps it in a more straight line on the acceleration. You can definitely hammer that pedal down and go for it. In races I've seen in these kind of classes, you definitely see the BMWs getting off the line very quickly, but with things that have changed recently, they do tend to suffer a bit into corners.
Yes, and I think this is going to make it a very, very interesting first lap. And of course, turn one here, it's actually pretty fast. The big braking zone really will actually be into two. Such a momentum corner, actually. If you go wide, that's 10 positions lost, and with passing being at a premium, that will make your life incredibly difficult. Working along board with Rafael Adepalo in the number 78 Mivano Racing Team car. Mivano, of course, so strong just 1 week ago, looking to try and have a good race here. DePaulo currently running in the 14th position, working himself down into the chicane. This will be a time lap, a bit of a wiggle there on the braking, Rachel, but nicely through, and this is that final uphill section. Little blip of the throttle, you heard him there, on the rev limiter, coming down the hill, that final corner, pretty much flat out.
Yeah, when you can line that up properly, it makes it a really quick end to the lap, and of course, vitally important for qualifying when you're trying to get into that next fast lap. In the race, you've got a bit more wiggle room though, obviously, and cars are probably going to back off a little bit just to make sure they get the line through. It's going to be tough, but once we get traffic moving around, I think we'll start to see a lot of cars actually coming together into that section of the track, of course, and a lot of lap traffic probably going under in the first sector, I think.
Indeed, it's a little bit wide there for DePaulo, and of course, that curb on the exit of 5, a lot of the drivers will be trying to use that because it makes the R out of the corner so much better. How many times, though, Rachel, have we seen people drop the car there just by taking a bit too much of the curb, hitting it in just the wrong way? It can be really tough for these guys.
Oh, absolutely. You want to get as much track out on that corner as possible, and it's a very wide curb. Of course, there's no penalty for the drivers using that curb, which gives them a temptation to use more of it. And of course, that means getting back on the track after it a lot more difficult.
So then, DePaulo worked himself down into the chicane once again, and just coming out of the corner now, working himself through the hill section, the last couple of corners, some great camera angles here, as you see, just coming past the start-finish line. There's the iRacing.com marshal, right-hand side of your screen. I'm just keeping an eye on things, and that will be 10th place and no more there for DePaulo. I think
pretty close grid here today, Will.
It is. So we've got one more car on the racetrack. That is Lars Conrad, who's just moved himself up into the 19th position, but he's got a lap to go. He probably will only get one more lap in, but it's an incredibly close grid. You can see the top 20 drivers on the left-hand side of your screen, separated by less than 1.5 seconds. You have a look at DePaulo from Grilli, from Valentini in 12th. They're separated.
Yeah, this is a really tight field. With the difference between these cars, especially at the front, and I've seen Cobo Lopez race before, he is quick, and he's also ruthless, so I think we can expect him to definitely make some sort of move into turn 1 against Lopez. The other Lopez, that is.
Lopez on Lopez to start this race. It's going to be an entertaining one. We'll stick it with Lars Conrad, so he's still running in the 19th position. DePaulo is just pulled his car off the racetrack, so it's just Conrad left on our screen as he works himself down in that Pure Racing Team number 20 car towards the chicane, as he is coming down into that sequence of corners now. And I think arguably it's not necessarily just going to be a two-horse race. And of course, one of the things different to last time is that there's not really anything.
Even with a shorter race, you're going to see a lot more drivers pushing flat out as much as they can for the fuel runs they've got. That will really change things up. We're definitely going to see lap cars, and the cars that don't quite have the speed suffering more, because this is a race where they cannot gain that back through strategy. And of course, yeah, the slow drivers obviously always be slow, but with the track being as it is, it's really going to penalise people that haven't perhaps got their speed through some of these slower corners. Although I have to point out, the Movie-Go cars, 3 of their drivers in this race for today, we have Jamie Rushworth, we have Reggie Blaine, and we have Wojciech Savidovic. All 3 of them very, very fast. And Rushworth and Savidovic, also Koba Lopez from a different team, however, regular drivers in the Kia's touring car series. They're used to wheeling those cars. This is a track that's going to suit those drivers to a T.
Oh, yes, indeed. As you see, Conrad there just working himself on the backstretch. Coming back down into chicane one more time. Qualifications are pretty much over. So Conrad, he's got to make it back to the line in time. I'm not sure whether or not he'll do it, Rachel. It is going to be close.
Close, but it could well have been set up that way, Will.
It very well could have been indeed, as he comes out now of that final corner. We'll go along board with him, and you can see his last time was a 119.79, 119.7 up into 15th there for Conrad.
Yeah, great lap from him there with the Pure Racing Team car. Really, really good lap. It's put him in midfield pack area, so he's got a lot of room to make up, but his time is, let's be honest, with the grid being so close, isn't that far off the leaders. Of course, things start dropping off beyond 20th place, but I think between the top 20, this is anyone's race.
Indeed it is. As you can see, the cars lining up now onto the starting grid. That means we can have a look through your starting grid for this second round of the 2014 STC Black Cup. So it'll be Pablo Lopez starting from Copa Lopez on the front row of the grid in Iberica Racing Team Lockout. Then Fabio Gonzalez from the Movano Racing Team, the 111 car in third, and Juan Jose Sanchez in fourth for the 01 Racing Team. Red number 3, the Movigo Racing car of Jamie Rushworth and Ruben Valesco alongside him in the third row of the grid. Iberica Racing Team's Antonio Jacobs in the 7th position, and Mamba Palumbo for Team GT in row number 4. Shridovic in row 5 alongside Rafael Adepilo for the Movano Racing Team. Then you've got yourself, row 6, Grilli and Valentini. Rest of qualifying times coming up on your screen. Rachel, that first lap is going to be critically important. Some of these guys here today.
It's going to be important, and it's going to be a hard-fought lap. These guys will be all over each other, and as we can see, a lot of McLarens in the front of the grid. So, could well be a track that will suit them very, very well.
And we are getting set for run 45 minutes worth of racing here today. Now, the rules of racing for today, you just got to make sure that you are one of the top 2 of your team to score as many points as possible. There are up to 3 drivers per team. 2 will score a point. And this 45-minute sprint race will have a standing start. You see there is no pace car on the track at all. As we're having a look there at Lance Conrad in the 15th position on the racetrack. But going to be a highly entertaining race, as there you can see the cars getting set to let it rip for 45 minutes here on RaceSpotTV. Don't forget, 1st and 2nd of November, the 24 Hours of Spa, the longest race in the history of iRacing, coming soon. But we are set to go racing here at Road Atlanta, and this race will start right now. Great start by the first couple of rows, but you can see they're 3 wide, almost 4 wide coming down into that first corner for the first time, Rachel. Does look as though that it is going to be down into turn number 1, as we expected. Juan Lopez leading the other.
Definitely will. A lot of those McLarens hoofing it out front, the flamethrower McLaren. Really getting the move on those Porsches behind them.
As there you can see the rest of the cars, we've got a Team GT car, very loose there as they work themselves through the S's for the first time. Pretty crazy stuff going on in the mid-pack. But it looks as though everyone's got through. Pablo Lopez, however, is still classified as your race leader as they work themselves down into 6 and 7 for the first time. Rachel, once we get onto that backstretch, that is when we might see a little bit of passing in this field.
As we already see one of the Pure Racing Team cars going down the inside there into that corner.
Well. We've got a spinner. This is at the rear of the field. We'll get confirmation of who that is in just one moment's time. But we have got a slow car who did just spin. I've got a feeling it is down in that mid-pack. They are 3 wide right now as we're riding along board with Reggie Blaine in the Movigo car, working themselves down towards the S. There you can see Reggie Blaine. It was someone just behind that. I think it was one of the Positive Sim Racing cars getting turned around at turn 7, Rachel.
Oh, we have another car off. That's one of the Pure Racing Team cars, I believe.
Yeah, there we see Conrad.
Vencrest? No, Conrad.
Yeah, it's Conrad down into 26th place. So a couple of people having issues in the early stages of this race, but it's Lopez who leads the way here as we now work ourselves onto the second lap of today's event. There you can see it's Lopez from Lopez. Then third place is Juan Jose Sanchez. Fourth place Gonzalez. Fifth place is Jamie Rushworth. These guys are pretty much line astern, about a second separating each of them. A little bit further down the field though, you have got a little bit of battling. It's just coming into our screens there. And behind, I think it was this guy who was the one who had the issue. Even Fernandez, because he is running very slowly on the racetrack right now.
Yeah, unfortunate for him. Although, as I mentioned earlier, the BMW is suffering into the corners, and with this track being a very turn-heavy track, if there is such a thing, the BMWs are starting to really suffer now. In qualifying, the highest placed BMW was in 8th, whereas now Rafael Adipalo is in 13th place, is the leading BMW, Will.
Yeah, they are really struggling here. Thankfully though, it was a pretty good start all around, which was, you did get a little bit of bunching, but not too much at all. Because having looked at Adipalo, your highest rated BMW driver right now, just ahead of him. Good little scrap going on for P8 on the racetrack, is right along board with Ruben Velasco in the 01 Racing Team 03 machine. They worked themselves back down in towards turn 1, and Rachel, we've got some very interesting gaps going on here, and of course the 3 different cars, they each have their positives and their negatives. Straight line speed is one that they each have good of, but with Velasco and Valentini battery, you really get to see the difference between 2 of the different cars here.
That's certainly true, Will, and yeah, it seems to be the cars are filtering themselves out like a racing car sieve. McLaren's up front, Porsche's kind of around the place, and BMW's slowly slipping back towards the rear. So I think this one could end up being McLaren, Porsche, BMW filtering towards the end of this.
It really could
but only one mover at the front so far, which was Juan Jose Sanchez moving up from 4th to 3rd. Fabio Gonzalez, of course, dropping a place. But they're pretty static and beginning to start to pull a gap on the rest of the field.
Yeah, but we're having a look on board with the Pure Racing number 13 car coming up to the rear of Velasco, and you see their speed is pretty much exactly the same. Despite the draft, Valentine not able to really do anything as they work themselves down into the chicane there, and that's a little bit surprising. The draft isn't as prevalent in the early stages here as one would perhaps expect it to be.
No, well, with the cars being so bunched up, people are taking slightly less aggressive entries to the corners, which means obviously the exit speed isn't quite as high, so the toe isn't as big. Of course, this small pack here being held up by Wojciech Savidovic in the number 6 up ahead, the Movigo car, followed by Palumbo and Gurali. So this is, and of course, I think I'm looking at the wrong person, Valentini, sorry, behind him. Valentini, there we go, behind Velasco. So these cars, yeah, 2 Porsches ahead of a McLaren, and with the way that Valentini's driving at the moment, I don't think it's going to be too long before you see him getting past those 2, Will.
Oh yeah, he's having a great job right now as we ride along board with him in that number 13 Pure Racing Team car. They'll come back onto the back. Let's have a look at the gap then. See, it's about 4 tenths of a second as they come out of the... And this is our thing, it's the same all the way down there. Pretty much been actually 4 tenths of a second. We have got a car off the racetrack, by the way. That's Rafael Adipalo, by the look of it. It was our highest placed BMW driver. So let's have a look, because he looks as though he's going to be classified as out of the race, Rachel.
Well, he isn't right now. He's got severe damage on that car. He could well be thinking coming back out, but with, of course, this being a sprint race, you quite haven't got the time to go and get repairs, although he is incredibly slow, as we see one of the Pure Racing Team cars coming straight past him now. I believe that's Conrad, who's recovering rather slowly from his early incident.
Indeed, we're getting a replay then, trying to figure out what happened to Adipano. I do believe it was down at the chicane. Oh no, it wasn't. It was on the run down to the chicane, Rachel, and it just made contact with one of the other cars, and that was crazy. I'm not sure if he came across or the other car came across him. We'll get another look at it, but that was a crazy incident.
Yeah, that was Jose Vergara he had a little contact with there, Will.
Yep, and that was one of the 77 car. And there you can see the 77 car. No damage to him in his machine, but
questionable, Will.
Questionable, yes. I can say that would be a bit of a questionable incident. But by the way, out front, Lopez had himself about a 1.2 second gap earlier on, but that gap has come down now, Rachel, to about 7 tenths of a second on the racetrack, and your top 5 drivers now separated by just 2.1 seconds overall.
Yeah, things started to really bunch up a bit, although I'm not entirely sure, but for some reason I can't see the Lopez on track.
No, both Lopez's are circling. As you see, their gap is about 0.6 of a second at the moment. They work themselves back down in towards turn number 1. There you can see Juan Lopez and Pablo, teammate Abby Copa Lopez in second. Now, as far as this goes, remember this is a team championship, Rachel. There is no need for these two drivers to fight for position. In many ways, they almost need to work together to try and pull away from the guy who's in third place, Juan Jose Sanchez, in the 01 Racing Team car. And there's absolutely no reason for Lopez and Lopez to even think about fighting.
No, of course, with them both being in the same team, it's more a matter of defending and allowing each other to draft a little bit. Of course, it is possible with the straights we've got here, and of course we saw there isn't much gained or lost, but it's breathing room for the team, because with two cars out front, they can just hold those positions, one guy defend, one guy attack. They aren't fighting each other for position, so they aren't going to be slowing each other down. As we see one of the Movie-Go cars, 8th and 7th place, I believe that is. Oh, very big contact there, pushing one of the Pure Racing Team cars off the track.
Wow.
Oh, he's turned.
Wow.
It's Blaine, I think.
Yeah, we're going to look at that in just one moment's time, because here comes Valentini coming down, trying to look down to the inside. And this is that continuing battle for P8, 9, 10 on the racetrack. Remember Palumbo, Gorelli and Valentini battling for 9, 10 and 11. We've got Shridowicz, he's fallen down the field. He's now scored in 11th place. Something's happened to him along the way, Rachel.
Yes, I apologise. It wasn't Blaine, it was Savidovic, actually, because Blaine's obviously driving a BMW. This is, he was turned around, I think, by one of the Pure Racing Team cars. I think Valentini.
Let's have a look, see if we can get a replay of this one. As you can see, yeah, it was the Pure Racing Team car, because that was one right behind him. You can see the R-seat machine as they work themselves down into, I believe this is the chicane that we're coming down into now. So, something happened, and Shridowicz comes down on the outside line, not quite close enough to make a pass, then tries to look down to the inside, dives it down the inside, and then I think, yeah, the PRT car, as they work themselves up the hill, is it something that happens into the final corner?
Yeah, of course, there's not many lines to that final corner, Will, so drivers really battling over that real estate on the track, and of course, trying to squeeze two cars into one line doesn't always work.
Yep. So that was battle for what is now going to be 11th and 12th on the racetrack. But something's happened out front, because Copa Lopez is still within half a second of Pablo Lopez. Juan Jose Sanchez is in third, Fabian Gonzalez in fourth, and Jamie Rushworth rounds out your top 5 as we ride along board with Rushworth as they work themselves down in towards turn number 1 once again. And Rachel, Rushworth is having himself a strong race in that Movie-Go racing car, but he's got to push a little bit, I think, to get up to the rear of Gonzalez, because he's fallen back just a little bit now.
Well, yes, he is, but it's not a large fallback, if there is such a thing. He's holding station fairly well, actually, and with this being a 45-minute race, it is a sprint, but it's not a 100-metre sprint. You know, it's more of a 400-metre. They've got some time to play with things. Of course, Rushworth, he, from what I've seen before, loves to save his tyres, so he could be waiting for the end of this race to really make a pounce.
As we're just riding along board there for a moment with Sven Kresher and the Pure Racing Team Treble 8 car. There's a couple of gaps forming now on the racetrack. You've really got Fabio Gonzalez falling from the rear now of Sanchez. So if Rushworth wants to get himself into the fight for a podium place here today, he really does need to think about doing it now. There you can see on your screen the gap from Sanchez in third to Gonzalez in fourth, as we are having a look from the rear now of Fabio Gonzalez. They work themselves down for those final couple of corners once again. It was just 1 moment ago, Rachel, about half a second. It's now up to 2 seconds on the racetrack. They've lost the draft. Rushworth, if he can get past Gonzalez, he might be able to charge back up. But Sanchez, Lopez and Lopez are now clearly pulling away.
Yeah, I think that draft really was helping Gonzalez, and Rushworth has to really spot that pretty quickly and try and make his move, because if he doesn't catch them in short order, they will be too far away.
And Valentino, Valentino,
yes, sorry,
right behind in this battle for P9 and 8 still, though.
Yes, but we are about to see our first piece of lap traffic the leaders are going to have to come across. That is Konstantinos Gigeas, I believe. He's running currently in 25th place, number 74 car, with another car ahead of him. So there is actually a battle for position going on here with Ivan Fernandez, and the leaders are coming up right behind that now.
Yep, this is going to be an interesting one, as there you can see Pablo Lopez working himself with his teammate right behind him on the racetrack. We'll work ourselves along board then with Pablo Lopez. And he has done his fastest lap so far. Been pretty good, you can argue. For 1 minute 19.5 last time by. 1 minute 19.1, of course, last time by for Abby Copa Lopez, as Pablo Lopez works himself out the final corner in the Iberica Racing Team car, coming up towards the lap traffic. And it actually, Rachel, it's going to catch the lap traffic in the worst place possible.
Oh, this is the one place you do not want to come up on a lap car wheel into this beginning complex of the track, Sector 1. Of course, you know, they've just got enough room now, maybe half a second looking at the distance, but he's gaining so quickly. This is the difference between the front of this pack and the back, is dealing with these fast corners. Fernandez clearly struggling here, but Lopez seems to have enough overspeed to get past him, hopefully, before too long.
Well, it would have to happen into this corner.
There he goes.
Yep, just straight down the inside. Lap car getting out the way. And Sanchez, you see there, third in line, didn't actually gain too much. But for Sanchez, the positive thing is that actually, no, only Pablo was able to get past the lap traffic layers right along board with Sanchez. I thought it was a given that the lap traffic was going to allow both Abby Copa Lopez pass as well. But Abby Copa Lopez, in that space of 2 corners, has now lost himself 1 second to the race lead.
Yeah, the lap traffic, of course, tried to pull over, but was too close to the corner complex, the double apex right-hander, to get out of his way in time. So he had to follow him through, and that really cost Copa Lopez some time as he had to check up. But the lap car Fernandez getting out of the way very quickly as soon as he could. Obviously not a happy situation for him.
And what it's meant is that Juan Jose Sanchez is now right behind. The gap was 1.1 second as they work themselves towards the start-finish line. Now, this is going to be a really interesting indication. A 120.3, so 1.3 seconds slower that lap was for Lopez because of Copa Lopez, because of the lap traffic. Pablo Lopez, you see, he was able to still do the 1 minute 19.6, so he didn't really lose too much time at all. And that is all going to be today's race about how you catch traffic. And Sanchez, as you see, he is right now there in the mix, trying to hunt down Copa Lopez. But again, now they're into clean air again. That gap's come back up. With 30 minutes of this race still to go, I think the indication this has given us, Rachel, is like, as you see every year at the Petit Le Mans, traffic is going to be critical.
That is never a truer phrase spoken, Will. Of course, we've only got a couple of cars within the window of being passed in the next couple of laps, but I think once we get into a period of, say, maybe 10, 15 laps up from now, we're going to have quite a number of the back end of the field coming up on the leaders, and these guys are going to be fighting position because, of course, later in the race, position is vital. Yep. And I think it's going to get to a point where, we have a car spinning. That's Fernandez sideways in the just getting out of the way in time.
Yeah, we'll get
in the chicane.
Look at that in just 1 moment's time.
Just misses Gonzalez, but that's helped Rushworth massively because Gonzalez has had to check up.
Yeah, and there you can see Gonzalez on your screen in the 111 car, and it has put Jamie Rushworth now within a couple of tenths of a second as it stands right now. And there you can see even Fernandez in the number 23 Positive Sim Racing car now scored 1 lap down in that 23rd position on the racetrack. We did see just a moment ago, by the way, Serenity getting past Reggie Blaine in the battle for 11th place on the racetrack. But this is the battle right now. Fabio Gonzalez and Jamie Rushworth separated by about 1 second as it stands on the racetrack, as they work themselves back down in towards 6 and 7. Yep, into 6 and 7. Now onto that back straightaway to ride on board very quickly with Fabio Gonzalez. Got a clean track ahead of him. Gap is now up to 3.9 seconds from the rear of Sanchez, and Sanchez actually has closed back down again to the rear of Abby Copa Lopez. There you can see the gap is now just 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, that's really going to make a difference. Of course, the teammates really wanted to play together, and they're definitely communicating, if not directly, but through their actual team crew chief. But those guys in a good place. Of course, Sanchez is a threat, but Copa Lopez, of course, if we can expect team orders to come into effect here, will be more involved in actually holding up Sanchez.
Do you think
trying to catch back up to Lopez?
Lopez is faster than you. Can you confirm that message?
That would be a very confusing message to get to the team radios, but it could well be a Barrichello or a Massa, yes.
We're having a look at Tom Valentini. There you can see a gap behind him is half a second on the racetrack, but the gap ahead is about 0.6 of a second, and despite the pure speed, I don't think that he's got the opportunity, the overspeed, to be able to pass. And that pure racing car he's still sat in the 9th position on the racetrack, and we expected him to have made up a couple of places by now, Rachel.
I think we did. Of course, the McLaren's definitely showing good form in this race today. It's being a track that really suits that mid-engine form, but they seem to be almost equally balanced with the Porsche as well. Of course, we have the highest placed Porsche, which is Danilo Jacobs in 6th place, number 12 car. He's the highest placed Porsche, and then we have a whole spate of them behind him until we come to a few gaggles of McLarens. So really pretty good race there for these guys so far, although as we see, I'm just trying to look now to see if I can find which is the furthest back. BMW again, a bit of a game I'm playing in this race.
Check.
Yes, Richie Blaine in 13th.
Yeah, they are struggling. If you have a look, actually, Rushworth, I think he did get rear-ended at some point by that 12 car, because we did see a little bit of damage there on the front end of the 12 machine. We've seen some damage on the rear end of Jamie Rushworth's car. In fact, if we go on board with, we're a little bit too far back so to see it at this point, go on board with Danilo Jacobs, you can just see a little bit of rear end damage to Rushworth's car. So those two have had a little bit of bumper car action.
Yeah, well, that won't be pleasing either of them, I think, and it might just have been enough damage to keep Jacobs behind Rushworth if it's just enough front-end damage. But of course, let's not forget, Jacobs is the same team as both the Lopez's up front.
Yes, but being that third driver, of course, he's not going to score any points here today. So his job, basically, is to be there as the backup in case anything really happened elsewhere. He is still scored, however, in the 6th place. So even if, worst case scenario, one of the Lopez's retires, and actually Copa Lopez has just lost that 2nd place. We've got a great battle going on here as they work themselves up the hill. Abby Copa Lopez goes back past.
Yeah, well, it is there, as a backup, as you say. Of course, only 2 drivers out of the 3 will get scored in this series. But, of course, he can make his name in the team if he fights with the drivers in the top 5. If he can hold up and battle with the drivers in the top 5, it'll allow the Lopez's to escape.
And also,
I think we'll just refer to them as Lopez 1 and 2, Will.
Yeah, and also it will mean less points for some of the other teams as well. We're having a look at the replay of Abby Copa Lopez and Jose Sanchez, and this is, you see, down into the chicane. Sanchez going around the outside, trying to make the pass. It worked for one moment, and then they came out, crossover, engaged, and there you can see Abby Copa Lopez back down to the inside. Great crossover action we had there, Rachel.
Yeah, brilliant move there from him. He's, like I said, he runs in the Kia BSRTC Touring Car Series, which is, I'll be honest, a bit of a scrap. And Copa Lopez knows exactly how to fight close quarters with these cars and keep it clean.
Riding on board then with Jacobs, you can see up to 150 miles an hour as they work themselves down. He is actually a lot closer to the rear of Rushworth now. He might just be close enough to make a dive down to the inside. He can brake very late there, and it looks as though that Jacobs is not going to do it. He'll stick in line.
No, he looked like he was going to try well, but he just tucked it back in line as he realised it might be too much of a lunge.
And you can see there, the damage to the number 12 car, it could be playing a little bit of a factor when it comes down to things like trying to get yourself past another driver, as just behind them as well. Piece of lap traffic, I believe, just holding on the racetrack. But out front, by the way, Pablo Lopez has now got himself a 1.8 second gap. Do you think now that Copa Lopez has been either advised or decided himself to play what I like to call the Eddie Irvine role?
Well, he could well have been told to, or he could be taking it on his own initiative, because of course he's second whether he finishes on the rear bumper of Lopez 1 or 10 seconds back. As long as he holds that place, that's still second place points. So Lopez could be deciding it might be more valiant at this point to hold up Sanchez and secure that 1-2.
Yep. As you can see, there are a couple of shots of these cars, so they work themselves down the back straight away. But for Sanchez, he's within a second right now of Abby Copa Lopez in that battle for P2 on the racetrack. There you can see them working themselves just behind the trees, into the chicane, up the hill, under the Suzuki Bridge, back down towards the start-finish line. This is your battle for P2, P3 on the racetrack as it stands right now. About 1 second separating them.
Of course, this is getting closer and closer, and of course Sanchez looking very racy today, Will.
He really is indeed, as these guys work themselves back behind the trees. And we'll cut to another camera shot there, and you can see Lopez, Sanchez, P2, P3 as it stands on the racetrack right now. And as it stands, here are your top 10. It is Lopez, from Sanchez, from Gonzalez, Rushworth, Jacobs, Valesco, Palumbo, Valentini, and Grilli. Ladies and gentlemen, we will step aside for just one moment, and we will be right back after this very short message and a word from our good friends at iRacing. You're watching the second round of the 2014 STC Black Cup Team Championship on RaceSpotTV.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to continuing coverage of this, the second round of the STC Black Cup Championship, powered by Team GT. We'll then send here along with Rachel Whiteford back to the action. It is still Pablo Lopez leading from Abby Copa Lopez, Juan Jose Sanchez in third, Fabio Gonzalez in fourth, Jamie Rushworth rounds out your top five. Rachel, it does look at times that we're about to have some great racing, and then the guys just kind of fall back into line.
They do, Will, but at times they're also making some interesting little moves. See if we can get a replay now of Ruben Valesco, lap 17, coming through the chicane, because Valesco and Palumbo had a little coming together whilst we were at break.
Yeah, and also Valentini just looking down to the inside right now of Palumbo, actually. This is with Palumbo down into the chicane, and Valentini, not quite, but will he try and do the crossover? We saw this a little bit earlier on as they worked up the hill. Valentini just doesn't seem to have the speed, and I think he's just running a little bit too much downforce on that car. He does get a good run out that final corner as they work themselves down in towards turn number one, and will he try and stick it down the inside into one? Yes, he does.
Great move there from Valentini. That's exactly how you want to play it. That's one of those great positions for overtaking on this track. Of course, secures himself a position through the twisty first sector well.
And again, I think he was running just a little bit more downforce, and I think now this is going to be really useful for him, because this will give him the opportunity to try and pull out a gap. The issue is Palumbo, I think, will have the Coppola
Returned! Oh, both have crashed. Sanchez and
lost it.
Rushworth has.
Yeah.
Holy.
Issues right now. Don't forget, we will do all of the action as we can once we get things back. Lopez is down into the fourth position. We're going to try and get ourselves a read on your screen. Figure out into the chicane. Losing losing a 24. Then as they work themselves up the hill, I believe contact the one who just went for a gap that wasn't there. Rushworth then gets in with a car who's just coming off the racetrack. There you can see Rushy play of this. We'll have another look at it. Work themselves down.
Big winner in all of this, Will, of course, has been Danilo Jacobs, who's managed to get himself up into second place.
Guys, are some of the issues that we have. We'll right along. You can see an incident just down into the corner. We saw just a moment. Lopez, there he is spinning. We'll go right look at Rushworth. There you can see him. Final corner cars. Rushworth, he made the contact of a little bit of action here. He's so strong. We'll look then. I want to go on board with him. There's the contact right there.
Yeah, he got past the previous. Much of a dive down the inside through that final single. Of course, this has really hurt our the grid. Of course, we've now Fabio with Rushworth extreme body damage on that car of his, but of course we could see just undamaged cars come on. Rushworth body work really now. Cobo Lopez Rushworth damaged and just falling even.
13 minutes left on. You can see the gap between Pablo Lopez and Danilo Jacobs now up into second place. Now the good thing, which is a crazy thing, Rachel, the team is that Jacobs is having a look from the rear now of Palumbo as they work themselves through the S's.
Will exactly well, of course, but Rushworth, for example, is damaged black time.
Absolutely, from the rear of Palumbo right now, but in this is a very interesting run too. Let's bring Rushworth battle for P3 and 4. Now, for Rushworth, he needs to get points. If Copa Lopez loses, that in terms of how many points a Berkeley Racing team are going to get, the losing teams are going to get for the Movie Go Racing team.
Exactly. The car in the field is actually Wojciech Savino in 9th place, although he has fallen back a bit from Fabio Gonzalez. He might not really be able to gain many more places behind him. Rushworth has a real chance here, Will, Jacobs as well, as Rushworth. He does have still for a good.
Of course, Rushworth damage as does Lopez going side of his teammate who was thinking about it there as we work along board then with Copa Lopez. Now the issue is Lopez and Jacobs start battling too hard. One chance to run to make arguably Copa Lopez will try and something big. We have somewhere.
Black car.
Yeah, it is actually Warmington.
It's Konstantinos Gigeas, I believe, Greek driver. He's well back on track now. A rather embarrassing spin in 21st place. Well,
yeah, for Drew in the 17th of him. Now a little bit of damage to that number 14 blue flag, and just damage to the handling of that car just isn't damage. Brings it actually onto the racetrack safely as well because the car speed back onto the racetrack. That was almost a very
exactly onto the race where you want to go back to the front. Worth is starting to reel in Koba. I think Koba's been
clock and Rachel 5 more laps in this race.
The way things are flowing, I think maybe 5 or 6 lap drivers. Rushworth, I think he's waited long enough. He knows the cars ahead are as we see Koba out of that turn 5, using it with him.
There you can see just behind with really poor position with it's a P7 P track. Nice little Ivano Racing. Don't really think they're going to be 5 positions. And slightly disappointing day for Ivano after a strong showing last week, Rachel.
It is. Of course, very different track, different strengths in the drive.
Look there, average 800 per second. Rushworth, he is right behind Cubs. I think at some because we know that is faster than Jacobs. We saw how Jacobs arguably is holding up his teammate under increased pressure.
If we were to see these high orders we've been talking about most of the race, I think it would be a good decision. Lopez has got the speed. McLarens are obviously faster in this race. Fine. Get him away from Jacobs can actually defend and hold sitting in Jacobs' car.
Question, because even though this is a team champion as we're just checking in with Rafael de la Pena in the Movano Racing team. Lost ground in the early going, right by as these guys position on the racetrack up into the paddock, and there you can see the gap. It's about on the racetrack as they work themselves out once again. And it's that thing, it's a team championship, only team points that matter. The thing, Rachel, that pride and driver pride, absolute lot to these drivers. You just make it your race, and you want to be the and get the most points for your team.
But I don't think Kerber Lopez is in any position to win today. Not with the amount of damage he's got. No, they're back on track out of the way. The position, of course, between Jacobs and Lopez. Of course, whichever one finishes is still going to get the same points. There's no championship at stake. It would be simply pride. Whilst I don't think the team would make that call, unless Lopez is sitting into their comms that our steering could get away, they might make that decision. I think if that decision isn't made, or if he you up, we might see one or two of them make a six in the dying laps here. Well, both not finished.
Indeed, of course, we almost had that about 15 minutes ago, well, less than 15 minutes ago, about 10 minutes ago. As you can see that just behind the trees, you can see Jamie Rushworth, as we'll zoom that. Oh, we got a car. So really, it's a very novel way of just moving your car across a corner. Palumbo 6 and 5 and 6 on the round, and team himself up into that 6th position. You've got Andy Chevron out of the race, and Cresmo Verga, Warmington Santo, all classified as out of the race, and you've got Gugia score 3 laps down Hellenic Racing team.
No, it's not, and that I believe that car in the final corner was also a Hellenic Racing team car. You know, around and come to lapping you. So as much as drivers giving the leaders room and not holding them up, you've got to pick the time and the place well.
For 5 cars really closely separated. From Adecopa Lopez in 4th place, Jamie Rushworth. Oh, Rushworth the over under. That Rushworth would have had that, except for the exit of the corner. Long board now with Rushworth. We have seen passes into turn number 1, Rachel. It is possible.
He's
Rushworth
going
down the inside in this cam. iRaceForLife themselves down in the S's once again, but almost going to be because I think actually it all really came down that Copa Lopez just brushed wide on the exit of the corner.
I think well, although Lumbo is catching up to the rear end of Rushworth. Rushworth's fight is over because of course you've got to realise that with and Rush will get an added bonus draft. This could actually help him to jump that position between him and Palumbo, as we have, well, 1 lap.
Copa Lopez, there you can see there, he brushed wide in a couple of corners, then unfortunately make anything of it. But yeah, we are down into the closing of this race. Here is your race leader, and behind Pablo Lopez and Elena Jacobs. Warning on the play clock. Lopez must be absolutely loving this. Absolutely no pressure at all on your screen. 2 is 6 times to Valentini. Any of these 4 actually end up on the podium, and there could be a couple of Rachel.
It's almost a certain they're really pushing hard now. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th all damaged. I don't think we might see one desperate attempts to get away, or could end up with a little bit of shenanigans, shall we call it.
Battle on board with Rushworth, but not in towards the you can see to Jamie Rushworth's car. Pablo Lopez, like this time by 1 more lap to go.
Happened from Jamie Rushworth. He's not had the fastest car, but with that to his car, he's 4th place.
He started running in 4th spot, turn number 1 for the final time. Now, is that Rushworth? No. This is the 3rd, and Lucas 4th. Well, that's Iberica because of the fact that they got their cars once. The fact that people get less points. Come down into 7. We'll go back on board. I don't think he's got anywhere near close to big. It. Rushworth, that's going to drop him down into 7th place. Potentially, as he comes back on. They go past down to 8th place, pass as well. But here's Lopez. Lopez claims victory. What a big wriggle from him. He claims victory here. 2nd round of the championship. Will come home in 3rd. So it's Lopez from Jacobs from Lopez. It's lockout on the Palumbo in 4th. You can see here. Worth It's classified on my screen. Did he get Hamilton scoring right? Really? Then Gonzalez, then Shudovic, then Turati. What a crazy loss there. All by let's even get ourselves a replay of
That attracted from his driver as well. He's had a stunning race. He was giving that everything he had coming out of that corner, but in that cockpit he was.
So they work them into that double apex right hand. Of course, let's not forget there is damage to Ross car. So they'll come down into the corner, and you see the first is fine. Then that was just right of the race on board. I just looped in the center of the corner. Thing you don't normally see cars loop it on the apex.
No, but let's not forget he has quite on that movie go. So hard enough to that point to really have that difference in the aero. Could well have just.
Indeed, so. And what a race we have had here. And again, we do apologise for those of you watching this issues that we have had. We will get a version of this uploaded for you but then your it will be then it's taking victory 13.1 seconds. Neil Jacobs, Adicopa Lopez in third, Amando Palumbo fourth, Guruli in sixth, Arnes in seventh. 8th place is Shudovic, 9th place, and Nicola Red 10 on page at the 12th. Bill in for the Hillock Racing Team, top 15.
It's certainly been well. We've had a lot the whole field. That front battle was tense, including that mix of Ollie. So maybe we might have had, but it's still one hell of a result either way. And Iberica Racing
do ourselves a little bit of Rachel, you know what, and we're going to have a quick chat to a couple of drivers from this race. Let's say, just talking some stuff. And as far as today's race was concerned, what a finish. I think we're going to have that with him in just one moment. Going game. Yes. For Pablo Lopez here in Atlanta. Pablo Lopez, it's so good to talk to you again. You dominated as far as, but it wasn't that.
No, it was because I died really hard and moment in the race and lost a lot of speed.
You led for the very running start. That your car would bog down because the McLaren slowest starting of all the cars.
We were so I had no formula problem.
And of course, you got so much experience from running a number of years within the Championship Grand Prix series. That gives you an advantage. 45-minute races, knowing not only do you do standing some of the best racing drivers.
It helps because the championship is a class higher. The pressure is high, lapping and not crash is different. I did.
Now, a 1-3 for the Iberica race. You can't answer anything. You actually took more points away from third place as well, so you've got to be incredibly happy with it.
Yeah, we worked really hard, so I'm happy with the team and the winning.
We've got Delano Jacobs here as well. Jacob, slightly more interesting, say, compared to.
Yeah, I had almost badly damaged all the race since lap 15. Also 15 incidents, risk anything. 2 off tracks and I was out of the race.
Now, take us through the incident, the big incident in the middle of the race. Huge. Lucky to get through that one with really ending up with your car in the wall.
Yeah, that spun and I to slow down and I tried to evade. I did contact with McLaren. I who it was, and I got damaged and the to keep going. That didn't let me take that second place.
Of course, Abby Copa Lopez came home in the third position. led to a 1-2-3 for that team. What do you feel that Rushworth get past your teammate, and were you worried at all were potentially holding up to the race, and both the Lopez's were pulling away from you?
I think I was doing stopping all the group behind me because I had that damage. So what happened?
And finally, 45 minutes in the book, so team 1 for your team, back to 90 minutes worth of racing next. Do you think you can carry the momentum to the slightly more
Practice in the next race.
2, 3?
Yeah, thank you for the work of all the team and the bosses, and really to work this off.
Well done. So locking out the podium at Road Atlanta. It's time for us to jump ship. We're going over to Movie Go.
Guys, that's not exactly the race you wanted today, is it? Tell me your perspective. Jamie, you start.
Well, it was all going well up. There was a race between Kobe Lopez, who I forget now, opened up a gap and gave me a shot. And then on the very last lap, 4 corners before, they accidentally caught my traction control off button. And
Right. The crash between Kobe Lopez from to the replay yet was chairs, of course. So, third place driver, you did have a real chance there, and that it was, I believe, clip you with that car. Did you actually know how much damage you had on your McLaren?
it wasn't too bad. It did make it a bit loose on the first downhill section, so that was no longer full throttle. It was pretty manageable.
I see. Well, it looks a lot worse than it did inside, so every drive from you there. And you said you caught your traction control corner.
I got a bit excited because I thought my hand just caught the button, so that button is being moved for next time.
So unfortunate, but honestly, really well done with the damaged car.
Thank you.
Reggie Blaine, are you there?
Yes.
Today from Movie Go, obviously your team captain here. Obviously, you had the 3 cars in the field. Were there any instructions before the race? Did you have a particular plan of action it could be?
Yeah, I always knew those guys to have 2 cars inside the top 10. I'm overall happy with the result.
Finish, I think, and 8, 10 was definitely. Vojek Savidovic, do we have you on?
I'm here. How you doing, guys?
Hi. Fighting with Valentini, of course, team. From your point of view.
Had a good start, but unfortunately, I didn't really match the pace of the me. So everybody behind me was starting pushing. The last chicane was a little bit messy. I almost made drivers, and the third time probably should stay a bit spun out after.
Still bringing it back inside the top 10, which is going to all 3 of you. This is something Will Vincent have been talking about during the broadcast, but of course, your team, this race was running all 3 car classes, BMW, McLaren and Porsche. Tell me from your perspectives what you thought was good. Did you like the cars you were running? And you'd be running the BMW again?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'll be doing the next race, but I struggled with the McLaren to string a load of consistent laps out of the 3.
In the entire field, they all seem to struggle today. Do you think it was the track, or do you think it's just the cars changed relative to the others?
The McLaren was probably the fastest. Managed to together, so I did run it, and I didn't really for the Porsche. I didn't run much laps in it, so I just decided to stick with the BMW.
Well, of course, driver topmost importance in terms of getting the last lap time. So, of course, Movie Go Racing finishing 8th and in today's race. Oh, great race, guys, and unfortunate end for some of you. As always, next week.
I think we're going to head over to Team GT World now, so GT. No one's
Hello,
here.
guys, can you hear us?
They don't want to talk to us. Oh, yes, we've got one person finally wants to talk to us. Coming home in position, Nicholas Number interesting race for you here today, hasn't it?
Well, interested because I failed to qualify and I started dead last. I tried to do my best, but it was very deep within the pack. But the last 5 6 laps, I had a good rhythm, good pace, and I managed to the best I could do.
You got yourself a top 10. Got to be happy with. As a team, it's not been great a day. But you did get Palumbo up into 4th place in the end, so you can't really
Well, no, he did a great job because he's did a nice qualifying in 8th position, and it's good points. It's not bad. It's a best result for us so far.
Mambo Palumbo, are you here? No, he's not. Rachel, pretend to be Mambo Palumbo?
I will pretend to be Mamba Palumbo.
Interesting race. Of course, you're right there in the middle of the that went on with about 10.
It was a difficult race for me today, so fast, but to recover from what I get. I had a bit of a worry early on and to miss somebody when they all crash. I don't know what his accent is, and I'm probably offended. But sorry, I was trying to do a bit of a Kimmy.
Yeah, that was a lot more Finnish than it was, I have to say.
Oh, Italian. Oh.
Yeah, but next week we're back to a 90-minute event. Do you think you're going to fare a little bit better there next week?
So we have to see or not because we always try to race the best drivers. So because I'm still not very comfortable with the practice and have to race.
I did get a message. Your questo. So I don't know whether that was a question or something, but well done to you guys. 4th place for your points playing finishes. We're over to the hilarious racing team. And hi guys. P13, P17, P20. Start with who should I start with? Of Bill, if he Bill.
Bill had to go, so he isn't here.
Been a bit of a tough race for you here today. In fact, it's been a tough race for the only one of your drivers finishing. One driver finishing 1 lap. Had a bit of a spin down at turn number 4 with a damaged race car.
Actually, I made a stupid set because I started the qual setup, so I had to pit early in order to fill, and then I had to race with qual setup, but heavy. It was a stupid move.
Well, yeah, very well. Race it up to 2 complete, especially when it comes down to traffic.
Of course, you're running different downforce. You're running perhaps different suspension. Of course, you don't mind if your tyres wear more during qualifying than in the race, but that could end up being a downfall. But pretty good recovery considering you had the wrong set.
I tried to keep a consistent pace. I tried to get out of the way of the pack. Because when I get out of the pit, I was in front of Pablo, and then I had to give all the field.
Not a good position. Still one out of the final corner. Who was?
I do think it's Nikos Kudrakis.
Nikos, did you mean to go on the grass? Just a case of tracking wide, trying to way. We have Nikos, fortunately. So,
guys,
unfortunately, we had the two that seems that in favor this car. So let's hope in the next track, Spa, it'll be a longer race. We have a better pace.
Yeah, and that
is something we mentioned
so much here today. But do you pick your car choices? At some tracks, you're going to have the advantage, and other tracks,
since we have different drivers, and we have different. Sometimes we use. Sometimes we have to change lineup change. Nestras couldn't. Had to change at last minute drivers with so many laps of practice. So we used BMW. That's a common car.
It's off day. See you, of course, in time at Suki's camp. Rachel and I are just now going to run away over here, but I'll have to wait for her now. Been a rather entertaining time. We go to 90 racing at Suki Spa-Francorchamps, arguably one of the top 3 GT racetracks in the world. On YouTube with the second half of the broadcast before we know it, and as we said at the top of the broadcast, today is 2011 Indianapolis 500s to play you out, and Dan, you will never be forgotten.
The checkered flag is out in Indianapolis and the pubs are open in the UK. Dan Weldon has just won the Indianapolis 500.
This has been a dream come true for me. I want to hear the fans some more. I can't hear you. Got to scream. He hit the wall. Just like Thomas Checker. Keeps their foot on the gas. Dan Weldon is going to win the race.
That is unbelievable. Oh my goodness.
Weldon, after finishing second the last 2 years,